Mark was grinning from ear to ear, his face brimming with mockery. He had learned early on from Rose that the current Dustin was jobless. Beside him, Rose also sneered. "Honey, this poor little pitty is just an unemployed, nobody who lost his job just a few days ago. Let's not tease him," Rose uttered in full of mockery in her voice. As soon as these words came out, many onlookers looking for a spectacle began to look down on Dustin. After all, most of the people here were well-off white-collar workers. Now, all of a sudden, a jobless person had appeared. In their eyes, Dustin was nothing more than a complete waste. What the hell? This guy dresses up like a decent person, yet he's jobless? Really? How can a poor like him be here? Exactly, no wonder he got booted. That's right, that's right. Soon, Dustin became the subject of ridicule among the crowd. Yet the indifferent Dustin remained motionless, simply glaring at the pairs in the front of him. He shook his head slightly and smirked. "Rose, you really think I came here looking for you? What a face!" A determined voice of him. "Dustin, you!" Rose uttered while the shock showed in her face. She can't believe Dustin will say that. Dustin gave a cold smile, and giving a cold stare towards Mark, who sported 2 dark circles under his eyes. "My dear friend, instead of wasting your time worrying about others, you should consider seeing a doctor for those dark circles. Don't let it get too serious before it's too late," he remarked. As soon as he finished, Mark exploded in anger. His face turned dark as he roared, "You little beggar! Are you looking for trouble?" Mark, in angry voice, pushed Dustin's shoulder. The crowd, influenced by Dustin's words, found themselves observing Mark with a newfound interest in his appearance. It was undeniable that those dark circles were hard to ignore. Enraged and flustered, Mark commanded the security guards at the entrance of the hall. "Security! This troublemaker here, if he dares set foot in this building, throw him out," with full authority in his voice, he commanded. Quickly, 2 security guards from the entrance walked over, their eyes fixed coldly on Dustin. Dustin merely offered them an indifferent smile. He then took out his phone to make a call to Carl. "Have you arrived, Mr. Dustin?" As soon as Carl picked up the call, he promptly asked with utmost respect. Yes, but someone is threatening to have security throw me out. I don't dare enter," Dustin replied casually, seemingly not bothered by the situation. Upon hearing these words, Carl immediately shuddered in fear. Who is so audacious? He dared to speak to his new sir like this. In an instant, Carl felt a cold sweat trickling down his forehead. This was a serious matter. He quickly apologized over the phone. "Mr. Miller, rest assured within 5 minutes, no, 1 minute. I will come down to get you right now." "All right, 1 minute it is." Dustin ended the call after saying those words. Seeing this, Rose, who was standing nearby, couldn't help but utter a disdainful sneer. "Ha! Dustin, trying to be funny? Just a few hours separated and you're already boasting," she said in full of mockery in her tone. "And giving me just 1 minute. By your tone, are you actually considering yourself as some big-shot CEO?" Dustin merely cast a cold glance at Rose and didn't bother to reply. "Tsk!" Mark laughed coldly, immediately took out $200 notes and threw them at the 2 security guards. "Listen up. If this poor dares to get inside, immediately kick him out for me." "All right, Mr. Jones," they answered in unison. Quickly, 2 security guards stared intensely at Dustin. Mark, tilting his head, looked at Dustin and said, "Kid, I'd love to see how you're getting in today," he said while grinning to Dustin. At this moment, Carl was also in a hurry, rushing downstairs. Just as he reached the elevator entrance, he bumped into a slightly plump, middle-aged man. Seeing Carl's panic-stricken expression, this man paused. "Mr. Perez, I was just looking for you. What?" "Oh, it's President Jones." This was none other than Robert Jones, the chairman of Jones Technology. "Do you need something from me?" Carl pressed the button for the first floor as he entered the elevator, then turned to look at Robert Jones and asked. Robert Jones hastily rubbed his hands together and laughed awkwardly. "Carl, about this. Could the rent for this quarter be postponed for a little while more?" he said with a smile on his face. Upon hearing this, Carl slightly furrowed his brows. "Here's what we can do. I'm about to meet with my new sir. You could come down with me and get to know him. As for your company's rent, you can discuss it with our new sir then. Your company has a decent reputation, so I suspect there shouldn't be much of an issue." Carl suggests to Mr. Jones. This confused Robert Jones. When did East Business Street get a new sir? For them as tenants, this was a big deal, because a new sir could mean a series of adjustments to their upcoming rent. And for tenants like them, who could easily rent a whole floor, if the rent were to be adjusted, they might have to pay tens of thousands more every month. Precisely because of this, Robert Jones's face immediately turned anxious. Soon, the two arrived at the ground floor lobby. As soon as the elevator doors opened, Carl hurriedly rushed towards the entrance of the lobby. Upon seeing this, Mark's eyes immediately lit up from outside. He then turned his head to smirk at Dustin, saying, "If I were you, I would scram immediately. The general manager of the East Tower is here, and if someone like you, who is unemployed, continues to tarnish the building's image, you'll be invited for a coffee session at the police station." A proud tone, Mark said to Dustin's face. At this moment, the crowd around, who was enjoying the drama, were looking at Dustin curiously. Yet Dustin remained calm, completely ignoring him. Mark was about to explode with anger by Dustin's cold demeanor towards him. At this point, Carl had already hurriedly walked over. Upon seeing this, Mark hastily stepped forward and shouted, "Uncle Carl, this guy is my girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. He just came here to stir up trouble today. It'd be better for you to have the security chase him out." Mark proud tone while pointing fingers to Dustin. However, when Carl saw Dustin, his expression turned sour. He had already seen Dustin's picture in a file before, so he instantly recognized Dustin. Furthermore, upon seeing Dustin in person, Carl was even more surprised, because Dustin looked even younger than he did in his photo. Thinking about this, Carl took a deep breath and said sternly, "Robert Jones, control your son." With authority, he glanced to Robert Jones. After saying this, Carl quickly bowed deeply to Dustin and said apologetically, "I'm sorry for keeping you waiting, Mr. Miller. I arrived late." Whiffs could be heard. Upon seeing Carl's actions, the entire scene was instantly in an uproar. What in the world is going on? Weren't we just saying that this kid was an unemployed wanderer? But something seems off about this situation, doesn't it? Mark and Rose, standing to one side, appeared just as clueless. At that very moment, Robert Jones, who had come down with Carl, stormed towards his son, Mark. Slap! Without any warning, he raised his hand and slapped his son heavily across the face, his own expression dark as a stormy sea. "You disgraceful rascal, are you trying to make me die of anger?" Robert Jones's eyes were wide open in rage, his head throbbing with fury. "Dad, why?" Mark touched his cheek with his hand, completely bewildered, tears swirling in his eyes. "Why did you hit me? You've never hit me before, ever. Now all of a sudden you. Bastard! The person I'm hitting is indeed you. You good for nothing. Do you think you have the right to offend Mr. Miller?" Robert Jones's eyes seemed to spit fire. Seeing Carl's attitude towards Dustin and then looking at his son standing by, there was nothing left to misunderstand. My pathetic son must have offended the new sir. Upon hearing his father's words, Mark, his face full of grievance, still shows defiance. "Dad, who does he think he is? An unemployed vagabond with no background. Are you guys really that afraid of him?" An unemployed vagabond with no background? Upon hearing this, Robert Jones almost spat blood in anger. Immediately, he delivered a slap to the back of his son's head, scolding him. "Mark, have you got your head stuck in a door or something?" he shouted in disbelief.